Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to our Saturday edition World of Warships video. We're going to be checking out the Tier 8 Pan American battleship, the Atlântico. She became available through the Dockyard event that we had during 11.4 and 11.5. And we're going to be looking at the armor, the modules, upgrades, consumables, and last but not least, the commander. So, if you haven't caught yesterday's video, I did live commentary playing the ship. Make sure to check it out. I'll throw a little tag up here in the right corner. We got our my third highest damage record with this ship yesterday. 225,000 damage in random battles, but arms race, so we were getting some buffs there, of course. But so let's hop in and check out the ship. So first we're going to look at the armor. For a Tier 8 battleship, she has really good armor going on. She has this, she's kind of a bit of a tanky, so to speak, with the armor of a battleship at Tier 8. She's got this 32mm on the fore-end plating and also on the aft-end plating. But also very interesting, she has this other armor here. They just call it fore-end armor belt. 102mm, and that increases to 152, and increases up as you go alongside the ship. Kind of these different things going on here. And also here on the aft end armor belt, you can see it does the same thing as the front does. One of the things you have to keep note of is these turrets. The frontal plates are 305mm, but the back are 152. So kind of for that reason, I like taking preventive maintenance, because it is possible to have these turrets knocked out. Also for the secondaries, 51mm plating. If it actually shows. So actually, I'll just see through on the turrets. Okay, my bad. 51mm deck plating, and then your typical 19mm plating on the superstructure. It doesn't have a big superstructure, which is nice. It's kind of spread out in these little areas. So if we strip away and see what does the Citadel look like, it is waterline or maybe just slightly beneath. I was trying to look at this the other day and I couldn't quite make up my mind if it's just a little bit lower than waterline. But it is definitely low. It's down there. And you have this turtleback armor scheme. Excuse me. Which means this ship is very hard to Citadel at close range. You can think of it as being similar to the German battleships that also have this turtleback armor scheme. So when you're trying to get close and punch in, it's just going to ricochet up into the casemate superstructure of the ship. But it's more likely you get Citadel at range, which you saw that in the first video yesterday with Iowa, who clapped us from, I don't know, he's like 18, 19 kilometers away. So that's really how you punch through to get to the Citadel. Otherwise, this ship is very strong and hard to Citadel at close range. So what type of battleship is she? She is a brawling battleship. You have these ships I refer to as the sniper battleships in the game. Something like Yamato, Musashi, battleships that do really well that mid to long range. And then you have battleships that they work better in the mid range. And then you have battleships like the Atlântico they're really made for brawling, specifically because of this secondary battery, these 234mm guns, and also the 127mm guns that we have spread out across the ship. So she's made to get in there and brawl. But you really, these days in World of Warships and random battles and stuff, the brawling action usually happens the last half of the battle. As far as her modules are concerned, she's got these British-made 381mm guns, reload time of 30 seconds, with some of the commander skill we have, Grease the Gears, we have the 180-degree turn time down to 25 seconds. The maximum AP shell damage is 10,700, and then you notice there's no HE shell damage. This ship does not have high explosive, only armor piercing. The other thing I need to note about the armor piercing, it's 10,700 maximum AP shell damage. That is the worst maximum AP shell damage for any Tier 8 battleship. So she's at the very bottom in terms of the damage her AP shells can cause with the 10 of these 381mm guns. So just keep that in mind. She's definitely not some hard-hitting AP slapper, but you get some nice broadsides, you can make things work. Her hull, 60,100. The gunfire control system is 18.6 kilometers. So when you find yourself bottom tier, it's a little bit more of a hassle. Also because you don't have the high explosive to deal with, like, let's say, Russian battleships, cruisers that are kind of just nose in, taking you on. So that's a challenge, and also you don't get the spotting aircraft. That's not available. So we're stuck with the 18.6. The propulsion is 73,300 horsepower, which gives us a grand maximum speed of 25 knots. You take the Sierra Mike flag, we can bump this up to 26.3, if I'm not mistaken. Yep, so I basically run that with the Atlântico. Otherwise, she just feels really slow, and kind of reminds me of, this Kansas, Colorado. So I like to take the Sierra Mike flag. All right, upgrades. So for the first slot, I've taken the main armaments modification 1. This reduces the risk of your main battery from becoming incapacitated by negative 20%. Main battery survivability goes up by plus 50%, and the main battery repair time goes down by 20% if your main battery should become incapacitated. I run this because when I was pointing out the armor on the main turrets, 305 on the front, but on the back side, top, it's 152 millimeters, so you really want to keep those guns going. So I definitely recommend taking this. Auxiliary, you can get increase your survivability of your secondaries in AA. Your AA is not terrible. It's not fantastic. It's just good. So I don't necessarily see the reason of why trying to buff the AA mount survivability, so to speak, especially if you take HE damage, it begins knocking out. I played against a lot of carriers, and I've played this ship thus far in ranked in random battles, and the A just never seemed like it did a whole lot. Never stops the first strike, right? But you can increase the survivability of your secondaries. So I have a mod that tells me the status of my secondary mounts when I'm in battle. Just tells me the percentage of my AA gun secondaries, and so far it seems like I've been all right. It hasn't called into question. I do know people who run secondary builds, which is what this ship is going to be, that run this mod, but so far I've just been trying to keep my main armaments in action, so it can be up for debate. Magazine modification 1, risk of your ship's magazine detonating negative 70%, as I can't figure out how to talk there. If you're playing randoms, clan battles, ranked, then you want to take the Julie Charlie combat signal, which completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. I don't run it in convoy, in case you're wondering. Magazine, yeah, I talked about that. Damage control party modification 1. This increases the action time of the damage control party in fast damage control team consumables. Consumable action time plus 40%. I'm going to hold on to this thought. I'll come back to it. But for as far as just the regular upgrades go, I run the main armaments modification 1. Slot 2, you only get 2 choices. You have either the damage control system modification 1 or the engine room protection. I run the damage control system modification 1. The risk of catching fire, negative 5%. Risk of flooding, negative 3%. So this is good when you're having to have more of the brawling action happen, let's say, the last half of a battle in randoms. So increasing your survivability, decreasing the chances, likelihood of catching fire or flooding. So for me, this is a win. You also have engine room protection. Yesterday, you actually saw my engine got knocked out, but it's because we were dealing with a Russian carrier who was coming right at us, and he was able to repeatedly strike us. So our damage control party is not going to be able to prevent multiple strikes within just a minute or two. So I usually run this on destroyers. Some cruisers I do also run this on, especially the light cruisers. But I would recommend the damage control system modification 1. For the third slot, you have the main battery modification 2, which improves your main battery traverse speed by plus 15%. As I said, I have the grease the gears on my commander, so 25 seconds is actually really good. The turrets have never felt slow or like I need them to be faster. They've been quite nice for me, I would say. So I don't see the need to take this. Secondary battery modification 1. This extends your secondary battery firing range by plus 20%. Your maximum secondary battery shell dispersion is reduced by negative 20%, so that means you're getting tighter grouping on your secondary battery. So this is, to me, is really what you want to take for your Atlantico. This ship is interesting overall, and I'll probably talk about that as we go along. It's got some different things going on with the ship compared to other battleships at Tier 8. So she's kind of she's a bit of an odd duck, but it's an all-right duck, if I can put it that way. So the secondaries, I think, really, because, it's really interesting having these 234 millimeter guns that can penetrate armor of 59 millimeters. And they have a maximum damage of 3,850. So that really stands out to me. And then, of course, you also have your 127 millimeter guns. I need to throw this combat signal extends your secondary battery firing range, reload time increases, and your shell dispersion is reduced even more. So now you can see that accurate 11.3 kilometer. So that's the maximum you can get secondaries up to. AA, nah, don't take it. Aiming systems, like really this is the one that stands out because the Atlantico is made for brawling. That's what she does best. She's not a sniper. She doesn't do well at longer range. She does have a Sigma of 1.8. That's kind of nice. That's not worse. So secondaries is what you want to go for. Fourth slot, you want the damage control system modification 2. This reduces the fire extinguishing time, reduces the flooding recovery time by negative 15%. So it enables you to be that tanky battleship. Again, I'm going to reference yesterday's video if you haven't seen it yet. Particularly the second battle, like I retained a lot of my health pool towards the last half of the battle. So when we're taking on a Baltimore, Zaitin's pushing in, we have a Colorado in front of us, the carrier is working on dropping us, right? This just helps helps protect that health pool if you've kind of nurtured it well to the last half of the battle. So we made a lot of things happen. And we're down to 4,000 health, and we made it all right after getting multiple kills and our team helping us out. Propulsion, no. Steering gears, nah. Airstrike modification, nah. Like this is just for your depth charge, which is nice. This is a brawling battleship. The depth charge airstrike is 10 kilometers. Like Massachusetts, it's only 5. Ohio, it's just 5 or 6, I think. So being able to have 10 kilometers strike range is nice. But again, you don't always have subs. I think I only had submarine once or twice out of the multiple games I played. But this, you're always going to get a benefit out of it. You want this one right here. For the 5th slot, you don't want torpedo lookout system. Just not worth it. Usually this works something better with a hydroacoustic build. You don't have hydroacoustic search on the consumables with Atlantico. But one of the things that's really going well for the Atlantico is her concealment. So I don't have concealment mounted on my Commander Concealment Expert. But when we take a camouflage, we already have the camouflage on, Pog. 12.8 kilometers. And you can get this concealment down to 11.52 if you make a conceal build out of your commander. And then your secondaries start going off 11.3. So in that essence, it kind of reminds you of the new battleship, battle cruiser line that goes up to the Schlieffen. Once you're spotted, basically the secondaries start going off. So that's nice with this. And I think Wargaming kind of did that to balance out the ship and making it interesting as a whole. Because you're limited by this main battery firing range of that 18.6. So Wargaming has to kind of throw a bone here and say, okay, this is a brawling battleship. Typically, we kind of make the brawlers not have good concealment. I'm looking at the German battleships as an example. The standard line. So let's go ahead and make a concealment better in class at tier 8. Ship consumables modification. This extends your action time by plus 10%. Don't really recommend this. This really enables you to draw close into the engagements that you have and able to go dark when needed. Okay, armament. We talked about the AP shells. We talked about the depth charge airstrike. I'm not going to go more into that. Maybe, actually, I'm going to say one thing. In terms of the secondary armament, okay? I highlighted this in yesterday's video. Since you only have armor piercing, like with your main armament, you have no... You think, oh, I'm not going to be able to set fires. But you can set fires with your secondary battery. So here with the 127mm guns, you can see 5% chance of causing fire. But these secondary armaments, these 234mm ones, have a 21% chance of causing a fire on the target. So I've had multiple battles where I've got fires on ships to get some fire damage in from the secondary batteries, okay? Note on these 234mm guns, they do have a longer reload time, 10.7 seconds. The 127mm are a bit quicker at 5.1. Still not as quick as other secondary armaments in the game, like Massachusetts as an example. But this armament really helps the ship because, again, if you watch yesterday's video, my secondary armament was doing more damage than my main guns were on the aircraft carrier that was pushing in. So really, you want to build the ship around secondaries. If you don't build it around secondaries, not being rude, I just don't know what the point is for you building a ship that's not secondary build with Atlântico, because that's just fundamentally how she works and is designed. Consumables. This is one of the interesting things going on with the Atlântico. Okay, so I'm going to actually switch this to tier 8 battleships. When you look at her damage control party, the action time is 20 seconds. Okay, we go something like the Monarch, 15 seconds. Bismarck, 15 seconds. Atlântico has a longer duration time or action time on her damage control party, and that is rather interesting. And so basically you have this 20 seconds of, let's say, invulnerability to being put on fire, of flooding being caused on you, so on and so forth. If that's activated, like let's say you're putting out a couple of fires, so on and so what. So we could extend the action time of the damage control party, okay? So one of those things being the damage control party modification 1, plus 40%. So plus 40% means, if I'm doing the math right in my head, we would be getting the action time on this. Nope, my brain's failing me. 24 seconds. Math was never my strong suit, so I'm just checking. No, it's 80 seconds. Oh my gosh. Let's just look at this again. Sorry, I have someone calling me as I'm holding my phone. Action time of 20 seconds. Damage control party modification 1, plus 40%. So yeah. So not just a 10%. I guess that's what I was calculating, or 20%. That's what I was calculating in my head. It's 40%. So you can have a 28-second consumable action time here on the damage control party, which is really cool and really unique. So I am actually tempted to kind of like, maybe you want to test this out. Maybe you want to run it. I think at some point I'm going to actually test it out just to see how it does. Because having 28 seconds of someone not being able to put you on fire is quite nice. You know, the carriers that have a really long action time on their damage control parties that go off automatically for you, right, when you play carriers. So you can make this damage control party. You can extend it out. So I am going to run this at some point. If you're already running this on the Atlântico and you're watching this video, please let me know how you like it. It was a reload time of 80 seconds. That's pretty standard of what you're going to find. with other tiers as well with the cooldown time. So it's just one thing the wargaming kind of like, hey, we're going to throw a little extra bone here and give it additional 5 seconds on the consumable action time of the damage control parties. Repair party, HP per second, 300. Okay, we're going to buff that a little bit. Take the India Delta combat signal, pop back in, 360. So when you're playing like ranked clan battles, randoms, I recommend running that combat signal because you get more out of your health pool. And there's some things we can do to further increase the action time here with the repair party and also on the damage control party. So we're going to circle back to that. And so now we're going to go ahead and jump into the commander. Because this is my first Pan-American commander that I've ever been playing with so far in the game, this is highest commander I have. So I would have loved to be able to show you off a Atlântico video battle where I have a higher point commander. We just don't have most of all the elite commander XP in the world. So we're going to go ahead and go into it more. And I just say that because just know that I guess my experience with the commander overall is limited, but I'm pretty confident that I understand and know what will happen when you take different skills, right? They tell you what they do. And I've just been playing the game long enough and doing these videos long enough. Okay, so 10-point build, how you start that off can really be maybe somewhat up to you, I guess I would say. And basically what I'm hinting at is going to be for your this 3-point and 4-point skill down here. But for the first point skill, I recommend going preventative maintenance. Reduces risk of the main turrets, torpedo tubes, steering gears, and engine from becoming incapacitated. So again, kind of highlighting that weaker armor on the side and back of the turrets, and the top of the turrets too. To be able to have the risk of those becoming incapacitated by negative 30% is really good. So I really take this mainly for the main battery, but it's nice to have that buff on your steering gears and engine as well. I went ahead and took the grease the gears skill, main battery traverse speed plus 20%. So that's what gets us to that 180-degree turn time of 25 seconds. Definitely recommend that. And then this is where your mileage may vary of how you want to spend your first 10 points. Because this ship is a secondary ship, even when I grinded up the standard German battleship line, I was like, no, like this line's about the secondaries. I want to do secondaries first. So I ran the long-range secondary battery shells. This is your 3-point skill, so this would be at 6-point commander. Secondary battery firing range plus 20%. So that's what helps equip us, get us out to that 11.3 in connection with that combat signal and upgrade that we mounted. And then for a 10-point commander, this being a 4-point skill, take the manual secondary battery aiming. So your secondary battery reload time is reduced by negative 10%. Your maximum secondary battery shell dispersion is reduced by negative 10%. They can be activated. Is that the longer you have with the left mouse key, you have selected a target for your secondaries to focus. It increases your secondary gun accuracy over the course of, let's see, is it 15 seconds? Accuracy decreases if the guns aren't used for 15 seconds or the prior target is changed. Maximum secondary battery shell dispersion when fired at priority target, negative 50%. Time it takes to reach maximum efficiency is 45 seconds. Back in the day before 10.0, it was you instantly had this negative 60% buff. Both the rework of 10.0, they changed things around multiple times. So the longer your secondaries are going up to 45 seconds, you get that additional negative 50% reduction in the dispersion. So it means you're tighter grouping on your shells, so you're more accurate with your secondary battery to get you that ultimate negative 60% secondary battery shell dispersion, okay? So I ran this first. Other people might say, no, take adrenaline rush first and then go fire prevention. Okay, that is something you can do. That's not wrong. That is something you can do. But when the ship revolves around so much around her secondary armament, I wanted to make that shine with the 10-point commander at the sacrifice of my tankiness, if you will, so to speak, survivability. So after doing this, if you want to go this route for 10-point commander, what would I recommend next? I would definitely recommend taking the fire prevention. When not having this skill, you just really notice it. This is pretty much mandatory. I run it on all my battleships. But when I don't have fire prevention, and you have 2 fires get lit on your superstructure, it can be frustrating because I'm used to this skill only having 1 fire on your superstructure. So it reduces your chances also of catching fire by -10%. But if you're newer to the game and you're like, Flimsy, what is this number of fires you're talking about on the superstructure? Let me show you real quick. So on ships in the game, like a battleship as an example, right now there's 4 places that can be set on fire on the Atlântico. Here on the bow, on the stern, on the rear part of the superstructure area, and then on the forward part of the superstructure area. Fire prevention not only reduces your chances of catching fire by -10%, it also reduces the number of fires that can be on your ship. That takes it from 4 to 3. And so where it reduces that fire is on the superstructure. So you only have 1 fire lit on the superstructure, not 2. Just kind of takes it, combines that at 1. It doesn't mean it's doing even more damage to you because you're just, if you're thinking of it in that way, it's just 1 fire like you'd have on your bow or stern. So a lot of people are focusing your superstructure in the game. A lot of the HE spammers, they're just trying to hit you in the center of your ship. And so having fire prevention helps you take less damage, further improves your survivability and your tankiness when you find yourself in those brawling situations, kind of like I had yesterday. So that would have been really helpful to have had. So for 14-point, I'd run this. And then there are a few different routes you could go from here, okay? So I'm gonna highlight that to you, but I guess I'll first tell you what I'm thinking of running. This is what I'm thinking I'm going to run, okay? So for an 18-point build, well, for a 17-point build, after I pick up fire prevention, I'm probably going to pick up adrenaline rush. This enhances ship parameters for each 1% of HP loss. So mainly you take this for the main battery reload time and your secondary battery reload time. So as you're losing health, your main battery and your secondary battery are reloading faster, and you get an AA damage buff by slightly. And then taking the emergency repair expert. Now, this is the reason why I'm a little bit more tempted in suggesting this, or that this is the build I'm going to take over concealment expert, which would get you down to 11.5, right? That's really good. Then I was talking about how your secondary start going off at 11.3 kilometer. One of the reasons why I'm really interested in this emergency repair expert is because it extends the action time of the damage control party. So we're talking about how the Atlântico already has a longer than normal action time on the damage control party. So I was talking about, if you were to run in the first slot, you ran the damage control party modification, okay? So we said that ultimately this adds 40%, which means that gets us up to 20 seconds. And then you throw that skill on, which adds plus 10%, okay? So then I'm pretty sure I know what it is. Yeah, 2.8. So then your damage control party time goes from 28 seconds to 30.8 seconds. So that's a long-lasting damage control party. And so for me, I kind of find that rather interesting. And I get tempted the more I think about how long I can make my damage control party last to try this type of build out. Now, you notice right now I don't have that special upgrade for the damage control party in slot 1. But with it how it is, I would get 22 seconds out of it. So 20 seconds, 10%, that's adding on 2 seconds. So 22 seconds is the action time you'd have out of your damage control party in running this build. Not to mention your repair party, you're going to make last longer too. Right now it has a consumable action time of 28 seconds. You run that skill, it's going to go from 28 seconds to 30.8 seconds, okay? So you're being able to heal more back. You also get an additional charge on your repair party, and then damage control parties, you already have unlimited number of charges, so there's no change there. So this is the build I am planning to take, I'm planning to run. The other build route you could go is, you can say, gosh, you can really go back and forth. You can keep fire prevention, pick up concealment expert, and you're down to the 11.5 by sea, 9 kilometers by air. So that's really nice and good. And you could run this. I would say this is also a good build. You could drop fire prevention and pick up the emergency repair expert, and still work maybe towards that special upgrade in slot 1 of the damage control modification, and get that over 30-second action time for the damage control party. You could run this. Other people might say, if you really want an aggressive brawling battleship to take the close quarters combat, this is a can be activated skill where it reduces your main battery reload time by -10%. So right now, if your main battery has a 30-second reload time, it's going to drop down to 27 seconds when you activate this skill, okay? And this is when a ship becomes in your secondary battery firing range. So you want the longer range secondary battery shell skill for sure. And this is I call this the very aggressive brawling secondary build. Typically, a lot of my secondary battleships look just like this. A lot of them do, across the board. Or there might be the switch up instead of preventive maintenance. I'm running expert loader, or gun feeder as it's called. But you don't need that since you only have armor piercing on Atlântico. So this is what I'd recommend. Secondly, I would recommend that, or you could do that. It just depends on which one you feel is worth more. Or you could run this. It's up to you. But I actually want to really go for that long duration time, long action time on the damage control party, and running that. So I think that would be really cool. So if you have a question about a skill I did not cover, let me know. Let me know what you're running on Atlântico and your thoughts on the ship so far in the comments below. And thanks for participating in the poll to let me know that this was the ship that you were most interested in seeing. I saw Holland scored second, and I've been having a lot of fun on Holland, so next week we'll cover Holland. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Subscribe again if you're not. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you haven't subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll catch you in here next time. See ya.